start with Professor Ondubisi. Yeah. Is Africa ready for smart manufacturing?
Okay, so thank you so much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It's quite a moment and a great privilege to have an opportunity of coming here to have a conversation on manufacturing in Africa. Of course, whenever we are looking at the whole nexus of building things in the continent, we begin to look at many, many factors. Africa, to a large extent, is still an inventive society. So many ideas, but the translation of those ideas into products and services, they remain very limited. So until societies can move from being inventive to innovative, innovative means here the capacity to build products and services, those societies do not usually advance. So there are many important things that need to happen in the continent before we can actually talk about manufacturing. For example, in Nigeria, we don't have electricity. In most parts of South Africa, electricity remains the challenge. So, and you cannot leapfrog such infrastructural systems because they are going to be catalytic to make it possible for people to move into manufacturing. But within the continent, there are pockets of promising cities or promising locations, like if you go to Cape Town, if you go to Johannesburg, if you also go to Morocco, if you go to Egypt, these are places that when you look at them, you can say that they are ready. But excluding some of these locations, manufacturing the continent, when you look at the comparative advantages of people doing so, for instance, in China, we may not have reached that optimal level where if you do those things, that our customers can actually come to support us. So, but nevertheless, the trajectory looks promising. And when I say promising, in the sense that the young people are looking for personalization of products, and that means that the capacity to bring these new dimensions of manufacturing is going to create a very, very comparative and strategic thing for companies when you begin to build things with the African customers in mind. But it will not be easy because the economic systems, we don't have them ready. So, but over the next few years, I do believe that the trajectory will remain positive and we will continue to do things necessary to make sure that we can advance that process. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Professor Ondubisi, please, can you try to introduce yourself? Just 1 minute or so, please.
Okay, I'm Ondubisi Ekekwe. I live in the United States. I'm a professor of engineering. I'm also the lead faculty at the Tekidia Institute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And just a minute also, Mohammed, please introduce yourself and
thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Kenneth. Thank you very much, Professor. And it's a very good opportunity today to be with you. So I'm leading the Industry 4.0 Competence Center in Tunisia. So for your question about if we are ready or not in Africa, I think I had a lot of experience in the digital transition in Germany, and I can give you over my experience. It was very complicated in Germany to make a transition in bigger companies. So what we have in Africa is almost small or very small and medium SMEs, and the flexibility to make the change in a small company is more easier than in a big company. And this is the opportunity today. In Africa, we can make the transition very, very faster than in other countries that they have already started with this era. So this is, I think, the opportunity for all of us here, that the resistance or the change is easier here, and it needs just to get the right information, to know how to do it, and then it's easier to realize. So this is my answer. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That was quite on time. And I now move to South Africa. Kevin, please introduce yourself and just a minute and provide us an answer to this question.
Perfect. So, I'm Kevin Allen. I'm the Chief Community Officer at OpenEXO, which is a global community of transformers, essentially people wanting to change the world, to embrace technology and exponential thinking, because we truly believe that there's abundance in the future, right? And there can be abundance now too. And so in terms of your question, of course, a reminder, I mean, Africa is a massive continent. You know, before we came live, you know, the comments about, you know, South Africa potentially not even being considered Africa, just in terms of the way it functions, I completely agree with that. And agree with the prof around, you know, there are pockets of excellence all over the show. Are we ready for smart manufacturing? I think the whole world has the tools, but there are certain things missing. You know, access to constant energy, right? Massive problem. Now there's some technologies that can help with that. Access to continuous internet connection. You know, those are problems in many places. There are tools. So are we ready? I think everybody should be ready, but there are definitely things that are standing in the way that we need to be toppling over. And in the African continent, due to the fact that there aren't so many, like Mohammed was saying, large companies, etc., we have much more agility, I believe, to be able to tackle those faster than if there's a massive bureaucracy.
Thank you very much. So I move again to Poland. Marek, please introduce yourself and just a minute provide an answer. So thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mark Ostrowski, and I'm representing Silesian IoT cluster. That it's mainly involved in fostering the digital change and introducing new technologies of IoT, artificial intelligence in Poland. Well, the question is Africa ready? I would say, I would ask a different question. Is there any other choice at the moment? Because basically, I don't think we are, and the same is valid for Europe, the same is valid for any other region and all the countries. And I will talk to you also about some of the Polish perspective, which is in the middle of Europe. But I think we all have, we're struggling with the similar things, like how to convince people that digitization, introducing new technologies is good for them. How to convince people, and it's not even about the convincing, like trying to force them, but how to present the advantages, the profits that the company and employees and management and the entire economy can get from changing business model, from changing the production model. I think, and this is my very personal opinion, but as I was observing African banking sector, I think that's an example, and especially if we're talking about mobile banking, you know, I think that's very important to take a look at the disadvantages that you can turn into advantages. I mean, one can say that disadvantage of Africa was not to have this large, stable, mammoth-like, old-fashioned American type of banking industry or banking sector, which turned out at this moment that is advantage, because look where American banking industry is at the moment, comparing, for example, to middle European countries like Poland, like Hungary, like Czech Republic, and sometimes not having the infrastructure, which it's not so easy to evolve, is not so easy to transform, because it works by itself, you know, from a certain point. Turn it into advantage to build something completely new with the absolutely different model using the newest technology. So I think that Africa, like any other country, doesn't have a choice to be not ready. And I think the biggest advantage of Africa is that it can build from scratch, so it doesn't have to fight with the transition. It can just build everything from the bottom up using the newest technologies. So I think that's a huge huge power.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate your contribution. We move now to South Africa again. Chanel, Dhiraj, please introduce yourself. And
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm Daniel Dhiraj. Currently, I'm a senior engineer at the Council for Scientific and Industrial Research. And most of my life has been focused on advanced manufacturing system, reconfigurable manufacturing, etc. From an African perspective, I'd like to say whether or not South Africa was ready, we don't have a choice really. If we look at the general in South Africa in particular, but also around Africa, we do have international companies that are world-class leaders in their fields, such as automotive manufacturers, alcohol manufacturers, etc. And they bring in with them a vast amount of knowledge in terms of best practices, as well as you know, the latest technologies that are available. If we look at the mining sector as well, there's a number of companies that are at the forefront in terms of their fields. So when we talk about smart manufacturing, my understanding is that we look at the technologies, tools, and processes to facilitate the integration of a value chain. The business model is still the same. The continent, we want to export as much as we can. And, you know, we want to keep the business basically within Africa. And again, it's not a matter of whether or not we are ready. It's the fact that we have to facilitate this to ensure that Africa as a continent remains competitive, because there are these pockets of excellence, as and it was mentioned as well. The one thing that I want to add to what everyone was saying was that when we have an exponential growth of technologies and we have a linear growth of businesses, then technically there would be a gap. And that gap typically is in the skills sector, meaning that a lot of what we do when we talk about readiness for smart manufacturing, there's nothing that we can't import from another continent in terms of technology. But for me, the most crucial aspect of that would come in the skill set. And that's something that we need to focus on very strongly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was quite on time. Now I introduce Rafael Semek from Poland as well, please.
Hello, good morning.
Yes, good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yeah, very clear, please. Yeah.
So I'm happy to be here. I represent the telecommunication sector. So I work for IS Wireless, which develops 5G in the Open RAN model. So in terms of your question, if Africa is ready, so I think that there will be never better constellation of stars than today, because we are witnessing leaving the old models where we had one or two or three vendors and the prices were super high, to the open models where software is disaggregated from hardware, and many more players can afford private telecommunication networks, private 5G networks, which is crucial for Industry 4.0 in terms of latency, etc. So I will be later showing this shift of paradigm, which is happening right now, and how to take advantage of it. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you very much. That was very brief and straight to the point. And Alexander, please, you're welcome.
Hello, good morning. And thank you very much. And hello, I am Alexander Stanik, and I am Director of Product Development at Smart Secure Network. And mainly I have a lot of experience with creating the distributed control systems and in nanotechnological industry. And follow your question, it's Africa ready? Yeah, it is. It's so difficult to say that someone is ready, someone not. So we are just at the beginning of the road, and the technology is still ahead of us. So I would sum up it that this way: the technology will adapt to the needs, and on the other way, so naturally we will be ready for it. However, I think it's a bigger challenge for people that create tools for customers. So we have still big gap between the technology, the tools we have on the market, and the needs of our customers. Let's say on the side of the entrepreneurs from the middle or micro-sized companies. And so it's basically we are ready, and we are just need to have right tools to use it during, and there is a lot of work to create such a tools. Just boost our productivity. So this is my point of view.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. That was also very straight to the point. And now I give each speakers about 8 minutes each for your contributions and the president. If you want to also present using some slides, which is also possible. And so we'll start now with Professor Ondubisi, and he will be briefing us more into the innovation space in Africa and what we expect next. So are we actually hitting the base? Is Africa actually or starting from the middle or at the top? And is Africa supposed to go through maybe through the China approach, or we use our African model? So Professor Ondubisi, you're welcome, please. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, once again. When it comes to developments or economic developments specifically, there are so many elemental constructs that we have to look into. Over the last few decades, we have seen the rise of China. And the rise of China has largely come as a result of the Western Europe and United States of America essentially shipping some jobs and also moving some opportunities to China, and now making China the manufacturing capital of the world. So to Africa, our proposition has been that over the next few decades, wages will rise in China. And if wages rise in China, possibly Western Europe and United States and North America in general will begin to shift some of those opportunities to continental Africa. In a recent article in Harvard Business Review, I made it very clear that over the next few years, that Africa's major competitor will not even be China, will not even be Vietnam, will not even be any other country, rather AI and robots. In other words, the jobs that America, the opportunities that Western Europe have sent to China, they may not even need to send them because AI and robots will do those jobs in Western Europe and United States. So that means that our own model for development, we have to actually look for something that is totally different from how China developed, because there is going to be a disintermediation as a result of artificial intelligence and robotics. So if that is the case, how do we now develop in the continent? So it is going to be what it is. I think we have a very big background noise. I don't know where it's coming from, moderator. I don't know. It's very distracting. Sorry.
Please, probably maybe speakers, please try to mute your mic, please. Everyone, please mute your mic.
Okay, thank you. So it's going to be a very huge challenge for us, because when you look at smart manufacturing, there are so many elements in AI and robotics at the current moment. And then looking at the paradigm that China has taken, it may not really work for Africa, because our major competitor in the future will be AI and robots. If US and Western Europe can do those things in their own locations, there will not be a need for them to ship those opportunities to China or even to Africa. So how do we now rise as a people? If you look into our GDP, we are extremely underperforming as a continent. Looking at our population, at least Africa should be hitting about $10 trillion in GDP. But how can we move into that 10 trillion? I go back to giving us a little bit of history here. If you look at the GDPs of nations over the last 2,000 years, one thing that is evident, that the GDP of Africa to a large extent has been linear. But if you go to the GDP of China or even United States of America or some major economies in Western Europe, you see that over a period of time, their GDP were flat and then they started ramping up. In other words, they have done something that is very critical in any economic system. They have turned their economies from inventive societies to innovation societies. What do I really mean by innovation societies? Innovation societies are societies that actually have products and services. Innovation societies are societies that can actually fix market frictions. And when you fix market frictions, you now create opportunities for your citizens to actually participate in that demand and supply relationship. So building things in the continent, having the capacity to translate ideas into products and services, and now solving problems that people have, these things are going to be very critical for the continent to actually rise as we're expecting over the next few years. But making that to happen now is where we can expect very new policies to come into being. There is a Cambrian moment in the entrepreneurial capitalist space today in Africa. Young people are raising tons of money in the fintech space, in the logistics space. They're also doing things in the healthcare tech. But when you look at the fundamental catalysts that can actually help Africa rise, in most of them we are underperforming. Nigeria does not have electricity. Even though we are raising money for apps, for people to transfer money from the bank to another bank account. We are raising money for people to use mobile apps to book a car, get a truck. But we are not raising money to bring in more trucks. We are not raising money to build better roads. We are not raising money to provide electricity. So I said that some of the things we are doing today are largely marginal. That the most catalytic things we need to do in the continent, those things have to be done for us to actually see exponential expansion in our GDP. So you could build these mobile apps, but if you do not build infrastructure that can move us from where we are, our growth will not be extremely catalytic. So that is going to be what I do believe that policy has to play a major role. Finally, let me give you a very simple point. If you live in the United States of America and you buy something from China, and let's say an iPhone case, you could get an iPhone case of around $3. The $3 will include the cost of buying the iPhone case and shipping it from China to the United States. But if you buy the same product in the United States, the cheapest you may get it maybe $15. So how is it possible that somebody can ship an iPhone case from China to the United States at a cost model that is cheaper than if you buy that the same thing within the United States? So I see that China has made it possible that each citizens can actually enjoy cost competitiveness, even in logistics and supply chain. And if they have made it that way, it means that they have built critical infrastructure that makes it possible for light manufacturers, SMEs, and companies to actually have global competitiveness. If you do not have that in Africa, it is going to be a very big challenge for us to build things and be very competitive, even internally, not even talking about exports. Shipping a container from China to Lagos is cheaper than moving it from Lagos to any city within Nigeria. And that means infrastructure is going to be very critical. So as we are talking about manufacturing of the future, I want to challenge us to still think that the continent needs to do things many other economies did more than 50 years ago. If you do not have electricity, if you do not have good roads, if you do not have security, all these other things, esoteric, as fanciful as they may be, we can actually be living on a pipe dream. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Professor Ndubisi. That was very well articulated and well presented, straight to the point. I picked some points that at the moment we are moving at a marginal pace with different kind of innovations, products out there. So Africa has not really hit the base in terms of industrial. Actually, the industrial base needs to be articulated again, and the stakeholders really need to sit down and see what Africa really needs, really, in terms of the industrial development. So now I try to introduce our speaker from South Africa, who is going to be speaking now on research and development and some other perspectives. Chanel, please, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Kenneth. So in terms of the research and development, one of the points I alluded to earlier was that skills development is the most crucial aspect of implementation of 4IR technologies and the successful implementation of that. I'd like to not disagree, but debate a little bit what the Prof was saying when it comes to the competitors in the future being robots and AI. The reason I'm saying that is because somebody still needs to hold the IP for that, and there's still revenue generation going to a certain entity for that. And for me, when we look at skills development and in particular tools of the 4IR, such as AI and robotics, etc., you know, for me, those are just tools that we need to become competent in. And we have in Africa some of the foremost researchers in that field, by the way, especially in South Africa. So the actual utilization of those tools to generate revenue is what we should be focusing on. And again, that's why I emphasize that skills development is crucial for this. Some of the research that's being done in our space looks at the implementation of concepts such as learning factories to facilitate that skills development. But in particular, we need to understand the landscape of the work environment here. And, you know, in Europe, on our visits to different sites, etc., we saw that there wasn't that much of a disparity in terms of what's happening in Europe versus what's happening in Africa with regards to the differences in skill sets required across the board, meaning that we have very skilled artisans, and then we have, you know, the implementation of very cutting edge technologies. So that is prevalent, and one of the advantages or opportunities that arise from the fourth industrial revolution is that there's a democratization and in terms of the accessibility to the technology. And the analogy or the example that was used was that when the first steam train was developed, it took about 60 years before that technology could be brought into South Africa. Now, in terms of the technologies that have been developed across the world, we can have access to that almost immediately in the commercial space. So there is a big difference in terms of the evolution of the previous industrial revolutions versus now, in that we have accessibility to these different technologies. However, again, going back to the skill set, it's pointless having access to these technologies without knowing how to lever them to our advantage. And particularly in a country where we have a very low literacy level, we need to look at skills. However, there are certain opportunities for use of tools such as smartphones, where even though the literacy level is very low, most of the population can operate a smartphone. So can we look at technologies such as that in terms of the interfaces, etc., that we work with in terms of interfacing with the smart manufacturing systems? It then means that we can incorporate these new technologies and train a skill set that is suitable to operate these technologies without having to go through the process of a very deep understanding of these technologies per se. It's again, if we look at these technologies as tools, it's how we use them to create some sort of value. And going back to the initial statement I made, where smart manufacturing is about integrating a value chain. We need to own that value chain. And if I look at the commodities in terms of the metals side of things, we export most of our metals and then we import the products. If we can stop that as Africa, we have the tools to do that. That for me would be crucial in going forward. But that's what I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I give the floor to my colleague, please, Emma.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kenneth. And other speakers, we now introduce Mr. Malek, who is in Poland, a co-founder and entrepreneur. Maybe Marek, if I could ask you, maybe you can talk about it. As an entrepreneur, how do you find Africa as a business environment? How do you find profitability in Africa when it comes to IT implementation and product?
Emma?
Yes.
Okay. I think there's some few connection problem.
You hear me now?
Can you hear me, please?
Hello.
Okay. Probably I'll try to introduce now Marek, please.
Yes. Do you hear me?
Speak a little. You speak about data security, network security, in respect of Industry 4.0, and what is present state now in Poland, and how Poland could relate to Africa. Thank you.
Okay, well, like I have to say that I really agree with my predecessor, Mr. Shaniel. Well, basically the competition of the let's say of the industrial of the robots and artificial intelligence is not only the problem of Africa, but it's the problem of everybody and everywhere. There is a point raised. Okay, why should we introduce the robots and to introduce the unemployment, which of course as it was said, somebody needs to operate those still the company. Somebody needs to create those robots. So that's one important thing to remember.
It seems we are having some problems.
Do you hear me?
Can we all hear Marek?
Kenneth, I think the problems must be on your end because we're ending.
You can hear Marek. Can you just raise your hands if you know you can hear what he's saying, because I can't hear anything here.
I think we can hear him very well, Kenneth. I think the problem may be internal to you. I think he can go ahead. We can hear him. It could be from your own parts.
Okay, so so this is one thing that is being very often considered as a threat for the next industrial revolution. But I think the one important thing that we need to remember, that everybody will be unhappy about the digitization if it's not done correctly. And correctly means also securely, because we observe this very often also in Europe, that people are introducing new technologies. They're introducing artificial intelligence, they're introducing robots, they're introducing digital systems to digitize their business processes and production processes. But if it's not done with security in mind, well, it's going to be a disaster, because the people are thinking, okay, well, I was safe and secure, having my simple machines disconnected from the internet, and it was fine for many years. Now you're telling me to connect to internet, which everybody knows that it's not really secure. So so am I posing myself to the very clear risk? Well, if we don't think about security as a core component of any digitization process, yes, we're going to have this problem. Well, there is a concept that I think it's very important and very valid to promote and to consider. It's it's called security by design. So that means whatever system you're creating, whatever system you're introducing, you're implementing, it has to have the security component in it as a condition. Because what we are finding very much also in Europe, but also in the US and other countries, for example, the IoT market has been developed a lot, and there are so many smart devices introduced. But the problem is that they were not designed having security in mind. So now what we have to do, we have millions of devices, we have polluted market with devices that are not secured, that they have many vulnerabilities, they have weaknesses in the system, both software and hardware, and so they can be exploited very easily. Now, coming back to what I said at the very beginning, I think Africa is in a very good position, that you don't have the problem of restructuring. You don't have to reskill the people, like, for example, in Poland, but not only in Poland, but in many European countries based on the coal industry. Africa's mining industry is a little bit different, because it's of course it has different characteristics, different resources. But for example, in Europe we have a large problem with how to restructure the heavy industry that we have inherited from the previous years into smart manufacturing, into smart economy. Because people, that there is imminent threat that so many people will lose their jobs almost immediately. So for example, and what we have to do, and we have to take care of the security, cybersecurity, physical security. We have to think about procedures that didn't exist those days, the cybersecurity culture. And we need to reintroduce all those things into the society that is used to work in a very different way. And of course, many European countries, or most European countries, have the same problems. They are on the different levels of implementing this new digital culture, or this new cybersecurity culture. When Africa has this advantage in disadvantage, let's say, that you can build everything, you can create the culture from the beginning. You can introduce the cybersecurity as a core component of any digital process. So this can be, you have this chance that can be understood in a different way, not something that is put on top of existing culture or the existing procedures, but this is just a component so important that you just don't see the other way, other than introducing the everything securely. Well, cybersecurity is a very fancy and very popular topic, and there are many things said about cybersecurity, how important it is, how crucial, how we all should care about it, how we should all introduce the cybersecurity solutions. Well, that's one side of it. Well, the other side is what is happening, when the lights of the TV stations are out. So how companies really are approaching the cybersecurity. Well, in most cases, unfortunately, they still treat it as a cost, because as an additional cost, because again, you need to add the cybersecurity to already existing systems. Now, if you introduce new technologies with the cybersecurity in it, like there is no other way, then there is no question. There is no asking, okay, why do we need this extra thing? And if you introduce cybersecurity as a core component of any digital process, then you will get a very different approach to cybersecurity, because it will be just as natural as any other component of the technology. So this is a great chance that you have that we don't have, for example, in Europe and in many countries. And I think this is great opportunity for you to use and to put entire economy, entire digital business on a very different and much more secure level. Because also, we cannot fool ourselves. There are countries or regions that are more vulnerable for cyber attacks, or less vulnerable, more secure, less secure. No, we are equally not secure. And as you can see, the launch of the cyber attacks, of course, many of them are launched at the US or some European countries, but it has to do with the development of the economy, the number of the companies, the organizations that are attractive target. But don't forget one thing: you don't have to be really the main target of the cyber criminals to get attacked, because in the new economy, in Industry 4.0, the Industry 4.0 is about the network, about connecting many different units in an entire value chain. So, for example, if there is a large international OEM, the automotive manufacturer, that of course it's and has so many partners, subcontractors that are delivering components to it, and this manufacturer is becoming the aim of the cyber criminals. It's not necessarily mean the cyber criminals will attack the company itself. That means that they might try to attack the business partners, the subcontractors, and through them hit the real target. So that exposes you, even if you're a small company, medium-sized company, and you don't think about yourself, oh, I'm producing something that is critical, or I'm really attractive target. Well, yes, you are, because you're working with the other companies, right? And if you're being hacked, and through you, the cyber criminals can get to another organization and to another organization, and then exploit the entire chain. So be aware of that. And I think this is, and one more recommendation is to learn the lesson that many developed, let's say, countries with a long experience of technology, like US, many European countries, they didn't do. I mean, we haven't learned the lesson about cybersecurity in a traditional internet, using passwords, usernames, and all that stuff. So Now you have a chance. If you look for new technologies, go for the secure ones. Don't repeat the same mistake that we have done to create basically a large industry that is completely weak in terms of cybersecurity, because it's using let's say weak technologies or old standards. They're not absolutely fitting the new digital world and reality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Marek. That was quite impressive. Of course, I also agree with you that Africa should look at very secure technologies, starting from scratch, and of course to avoid some kind of experiences which Poland have had in the past. So thank you very much for passing on the message. And now I go back to South Africa. Kevin, please, in 8 minutes. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kenneth. I'm just going to quickly share my screen and hit play here. So I introduced myself a little bit earlier, just to let you know I'm working with OpenEXO, but I do come from a background of pharmaceutical industry. I used to work within a manufacturing plant and worked my way up to be the operations manager there, and was part of a team, you know, modernizing our factory, right? Introducing some smart manufacturing elements to our plant, which was really interesting. Not a simple task necessarily, but a really interesting one. And so what I wanted to just show today is the fact that we currently have at least 25 or more what we like to call Gutenberg moments happening, right? So of course we all know back when the Gutenberg press was introduced, it completely shifted the world. It changed the way the world functioned by giving people access to printed materials, being able to read, etc. And a lot of you know, what we saw around countries, you know, moving into democracy from monarchies, etc., was a lot due to the Gutenberg press, right? And so you can see on the screen here, there are many of them, but I'm not going to speak about those right now. Before I get into this, we need to understand that organizations need to be able to understand how to leverage these technologies, right? And we truly believe within the OpenEXO community, you know, from the book Exponential Organizations, that this model of what organizations need to look like, and when we say organizations here, we're not only talking about the actual, you know, manufacturing enterprises. This actually needs to be across the board, right? From the government level all the way down. People need to understand what the future of organizations looks like. And so, you know, I'm going to quickly go over a little bit of the model if you've never read Exponential Organizations. But, you know, ultimately it all starts with having a massive transformative purpose. And so what I would you know, recommend is that, you know, every organization, every country, every city, every household, in fact every person should be saying, what is the purpose, the massive purpose that I can have on the planet, right? And so that's the first thing that manufacturing organizations need to be asking themselves is, well, what really is our purpose? And then looking internally at the organization, these are called the ideas attributes. Looking externally at the world, this is called the scale attributes. And the scale attributes are there to say, how do I tap into the abundance that's outside of my organization? So if I'm a manufacturing organization, I don't necessarily have all the best people or all the smartest ideas. So how do I tap into abundance? How can I leverage staff on demand, or how can I leverage the community outside of my organization? The next question is, how do I leverage algorithms obviously manufacturing plants are creating an abundance of data in terms of the way that manufacturing works, whether it's the the speed of the line, the output, the number of breakdowns, etc. And so how can you actually take all that data? Many of the machines you might be using are creating data. How do you take that data and use algorithms within your organization? How can manufacturing organizations leverage assets that perhaps are not owned by themselves? And then how can the organization increase its engagement with its customers? Then internally we say, what is the interface that you are using to ensure that you're improving your manufacturing process? And when I go back to my manufacturing experience, we used to be completely paper-based, and we then moved to a digital interface. And that allowed us to reduce errors tremendously, right? Because now you had a digital interface that didn't allow you to make those errors that you could easily make in a paper-based world. We then have dashboards. How are you looking at everything you're doing on a day-to-day basis within your manufacturing facility, so you know when there's issues? How are you experimenting? Now, in some manufacturing you can't do this, but in some you can. How are you experimenting, improving things? How are you improving autonomy? And Hire, the Chinese manufacturing company, is a great example of having autonomous teams that build their products, right? So go read up about that. And then how are you reducing the latency of communication within your manufacturing plant? By including social technologies. Now, this is the EXO model in a split second, but what I really want to speak about in the next 2 minutes is, well, these are some of those technologies that African manufacturers can be looking at. And the ones that I highlighted in blue are those that I think are ready for prime time in manufacturing. How are you using artificial intelligence? That really speaks to the algorithms attribute. But how are you taking the data that your manufacturing plant is using and leveraging AI? How are you using robotics? And I don't believe robotics replaces humans; it augments humans. How are you using robotics to augment humans? How are you using sensors within your manufacturing plant to improve your production processes? How are you connected to the cloud securely, as we heard before? How are your devices connected? Now, some of these technologies are big issues in Africa as well. Ubiquitous internet, for example, is a major issue. But that is a technology that, through the likes of SpaceX, for example, or through the likes of some of the 5G services that are coming online, we are going to see that being more commonplace. And so and then in terms of what I've highlighted there, solar technology has improved leaps and bounds in terms of its costs, that many African manufacturers don't necessarily need to rely on grid energy, but actually could rely on their own solar energy. We know battery technologies are a little bit behind. I don't have them on here, although I know that there are a lot of them that are coming up. So this is just a quick snippet of what I see. I believe that we have an abundant future, that technologies can move us towards abundance, which shifts our mindset totally. The thinking of the 20th century needs to disappear. Some of the things that we base our societies on, I think, are changing, and I think I've reached my time. So thank you very much, and looking forward to some of the discussions that are coming up.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm having a bit of issue stopping my screen. There we go.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to ask, going back to okay,
Kenneth,
I invite now Mr. Mohammed, please, from Tunisia.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. I will also share my screen. So thank you very much. Can you see it? Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So I heard a lot of interesting things today, and I want to share with you today our experience in Tunisia. So we are proud now to announce that we have now this experience over 2 years to establish a competence center that is leading the Industry 4.0 in Tunisia. So I think one of the important things is that this kind of project should be supported by government, and this is what is very important in Africa. If you get the support of the government and also from the financial side, what we had here in Tunisia from our ministry and from the German German company GIZ that support us to introduce this new revolution in Tunisia. So we have started with an initiative that's called toward an Industry 4.0 in Tunisia. You see it also in Arabic. I think maybe you can understand it. So the initiative was made to make this transition, and this can start. I think the most important thing is that we have to act locally and then to think also globally. And this can be done if you can capture the needs of the local ecosystem. So, and with these needs, we have captured a lot of needs, and we are fulfilling now these gaps. Starting by the readiness check of the companies. So a lot of companies, they don't know where they are, if they have already the infrastructure, the needed infrastructure to start some projects, because you know, Industry 4.0 or smart manufacturing is not a product that you can buy from the market and you get the Industry 4.0. So it's more than this. It's a transition. It's a change of the mindset. It's a change of infrastructure and so on, as we heard from the other presentation. So that's why one of the needs from SMEs is to know their maturity in the Industry 4.0. And what we are providing is a Readiness Checklight, where we give for the SME an overview of their capacity to go in this direction. If this is done, so we give them also the possibility to have a deeper diagnosis. This is very important when you start a project, because as you know, each SME has its own needs, and they have their own processes and so on. So what is needed also to have a deeper assessment in the Industry 4.0. And if you get this, so you have to start with the first experience, real experience. The way of this transition is sometimes a long way, but without having the success story from the beginning, so maybe the SME will be afraid from going into this experience. So that's why it's very important to give for SMEs the possibility to see a pilot project. Maybe we connect one machine where we make the transition of only one process, and then they can get the lessons from this pilot project in terms of costs, risks, and also benefits. So this is very important that this way we have already started with it, and we have now a lot of pilot projects started within real worlds of SMEs, and it was very successful to give companies the possibility to know where they or in which direction they will go. And to achieve this, also we prepare also a roadmap for the company. So this is very important for the executives to know the way that they have to take to have this transition. So the roadmap is giving for the executives the possibility to calculate their budget, to know their risk, to know what have they to change in terms of resources, processes, and so on. And this is very important to give this this service for the SMEs to start their transition. So we have also captured other needs in the ecosystem, this gap was to make or to have the maturity of the solutions. Nowadays, it's not easy to test something in the real world of industries. That's why our competence center has prepared a test bed. It's a learn fabric. It's a model, I will say, copied from Germany, but installed with local resources to have a test bed that gives the possibility for tech providers to test their solutions, and this gives them the possibility to have to reach maturity of their solution, and then they can provide them to real companies. This is also a bridge also for startups and for the academia, also to know, you have to prepare the academia to be ready for this transition, and such centers give the possibility to the academia to come and to test and to see which algorithm can be used in the industry. And also for startups, it's a great opportunity to make their scalability, because you cannot buy, you cannot sell solutions that are not tested, that are not mature for the SMEs. Another thing is also another gap is also that a lot of multipliers they need to prepare the sensitizations to be near or closer to the executives or the companies. And this is very important also to multiply the number of workshops, to multiply the number of webinars. And we are inviting you, all of you, to assist with us to make such workshops about securities, about the change of mindset, about the problems, to make it easier that people understand what are the risks, what are the benefits in the Industry 4.0. Also, another point is also to make to give the opportunity for researchers. We are talking about innovation, new technologies, and that's why we are providing a program of postdoc 4.0 for researchers that they come out from the theoretical part of their research to go to the real world and to translate their researchers to real products that can be used in the industry. And that's why our role is to give this opportunity to the researchers to come to the industrial field and to work on establishing new solutions with their research background. The last point that we have also detected here in our ecosystem also is about the training. That's why we have made the experience. We have prepared 5 levels of training, beginning by a yellow belt. That is a small level where people can understand what are the techniques and technologies used in the Industry 4.0. Then, if they get the chance to go more in this way, so they can ask for more details or more technical details, and that's giving it's given in the orange belt. Orange belt is more for administration of the tools. As we heard, we need dashboards, we have a lot of application, we have distributed systems, and this needs also a background of Industry 4.0 administration. Another level is more testing also that to be an Industry 4.0 integrator. This is very important and very important level, because a lot of companies, they have solutions, but they cannot integrate them in the industry sector because they don't have resources to go to the SMEs and to make the diagnosis and to integrate the solution with machines, to integrate the sensors with machines and so on. So that's why this level is giving all the used or needed information to communicate with machines, to communicate with automates and so on. So more. For another level is the brown belt. It's called Industry 4.0 developer. So a lot of solutions are based today on developing software developing, and we have a lot of software developer, but they are not familiar with the industrial processes. That's why we invite them, and we give them this a whole overview about the industry, that they can produce applications in AR, VR, and big data, directly oriented for the industry. If you have also the capacity to be strong in this way, so we give you the opportunity to be an Industry 4.0 architect. That means that you will be able to make a whole solution and to introduce it in the real world. So this is about the training. So as I said, this is a real experience. We have already started with a lot of SMEs here, and we are proud also today to share this experience also with others. This is, I think, we have to go to the local field and to act there, and then we can adjust our manner with the agility process, and then we can get this transition. Thank you very much. We can't hear you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate your presentation. It's kind of a showpiece for Africa, really. But your presentation, I see it more like focused on SMEs and new initiatives, you know. But I really want us to want you to think about existing existing industrial base in Africa. How can we help them to transform quickly, you know, because Industry 4.0 smart manufacturing is coming very fast as well. So, and Professor Ondubisi also mentioned that the industrial base really needs to be strengthened. You know, we need to revisit the industrial base in Africa, because as at now, the industrial base is the engine, economic engine for Africa development. So, and I understand what your center is doing. I really appreciate what they're doing. It is kind of it's a showpiece for Africa, you know, and it encourages the new enterprises, new initiatives, and of course the SMEs to key already early into Industry 4.0. But we still have a problem. The industry, the existing industry, really needs to embrace Industry 4.0. And that is why we are also thinking that, okay, if you take this campaign to them, the workers, the capacity that is there right now, you know, how will they transition? So this is another problem, you know. Recently, I've visited some few automated factories in Europe, and also I've visited some in Africa. In Africa, on the floor, on the production floor, you find almost about 80, capacity doing one or two things, and there are still some, it's not fully automated, but when I went to the ones in Belgium, for instance, taking into account a timber processing industry, you understand what I'm trying to say? The processing floor is almost completely empty because it is automated. You see the wood being cut from one section to the other, and you can't find a human interacting. You understand what I'm trying to say? So, and this is something we have to take into account as well, and to see how the industry, the existing industry in Africa could key, but what are they going to do with their existing staff, existing floormen? So that is another issue we have to take into account. And that is why when they talk about when we take this message to them, the first thing is job loss. So, and now I try to take our next speaker. We'll come back to that. Our next speaker is Alexandra. Please. Thank you.
Yep. Hello, and thank you, Kenneth.
Yes, please. Yeah.
I think we should focus, because we don't talk about the core of the problem and the core of the engine for that, and this core is the return of the investment. So there is always, we should talk about the money and about the profit. So all technology, all things we are doing is just to grow the company, grow the investment, the return from the investment, and growth of the profit. So basically, all it seems that every region has some specificity of the operation, and it's different in the middle of the Europe, and it's different of the west of the Europe, different the China, different in the and I'm sure it's different in every region in the Africa. So it's huge. From one side, it's a huge opportunity for local investors, local research kind of groups that want to build some tools, create some new tools, and think about something in the new way, and focus on, let's say, specific local market, local regulations, and even local culture of the people, and how they behavior and how they produce something, some goods, and and deliver some services. So it's a huge space over here, and it's, in my opinion, it's basically in some terms it's local. Of course, we can bring some technology from the, let's say, from the China or from the US, but basically in most cases, in my, let's say, experience, it will be better to develop on the local or just modify by the local minds, let's say, in this term. So we still are under the beginning of this road, and our major problem is the gap between the technology and the gap between the needs of the people is still quite large, and the micro, especially for the small and micro companies, and this is everywhere. We have the same in Poland, and it's still, we need to, this is, yeah, the basic problem is how to stimulate the young people that want to create the technology and force this technology to boost the profit of the small companies. And this is lot of space we have. We didn't talk about any, let's say, kind of industries like nanotechnology, something like that, or we can talk about the simplifying maintenance, creating some special modular automation tools, how to automate the production. It's still open because it's not obvious how to do this for such a small market and such of, let's say, small production lines in these terms. How to automate the supply chain and the payments, the billing of the systems, how to connect the augmented reality tools and this kind of tools for this, let's say, on the so small scale. And it provides this technology with little small cost. So my thoughts and my, let's say, at this moment, the opinion and thinking about this problem, and is that we see strong movement from the e-commerce tools, such as, let's say, drop shipping or e-commerce shop tools that are going to this technology, is going to the small industries. It can be, it's just be, let's say, they are just boosting the accessibility of the service of the small companies and boosting the supply chain. And so, in my opinion, at this moment, the best way is to focus and open the e-commerce, connect the e-commerce technology and provide them to the let's say manufacturing industry. And I mean in the small scale, because if we talk about the large scale manufacturing and we talk about the production line from some large companies from the West, and there we have a bunch of them in Poland today. This is not our problem because they have all tools for that. They are working. They are just they have investment in financial from the investment and financial point of view. They are just they have it, and this is just work. But most of our development is the focus on the micro and small companies. So maybe I will back to my issue. It's not we are for basically it's we as a people. It's not the user of the technology, but the technology is for us. So there is still gap between technology and our needs, and it's a lot of space for doing that. And what we can do in the first step is just taking the e-commerce technology and try and forcing that, or not only forcing, but they open this transition technology to the world of the manufacturing. This one thing. The second thing is the regulation, and the regulation should be just should stimulate the people, and most of the young people that create those such of changing such of tools to support the small companies, and this is how I feel it can be done in this let's say on the first step in this really long, small time scale, because it's in the we shouldn't talk about large technology, high technology, and we just put in the robotics to the small garage somewhere, and to the some little small or medium-sized company that wanted to produce really simple parts. So this is my thoughts. The second thing, I think there is space for banking systems and banking system, and I would see it something in the strong movement in the Poland, that the banks just support the small and micro entrepreneurs to create success services that helps people just doing the billings and so all this stuff that is responsible for the company. So yeah, this is my just my thoughts, and I think we should think about it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Right on time, and we now try to take some few questions in a kind of interactive discussions. Yes, Mr. Alexander, you mentioned that smart manufacturing could help to facilitate movement of trades, and as well as I picked just a little clarification. You see a possibility, because normally we should think that smart manufacturing will help in facilitating trades, moving products quickly, to the market, and that creates more mobility in the supply chain. You understand what I'm trying to say? So this is my first point. We are now in a kind of an interactive discussion now. So what is your first take on this?
You mean about the logistic and speed up the logistic of the company?
Exactly.
The first, it depends on the size of the company. So I will focus on the middle size and small and micro sized companies, because the larger maybe they have it something like that. But basically, from my experience, we can use something like JIT deliveries of goods, and use just the e-commerce tools for that, like drop shipping, and then not keep, for example, if you want to deliver the goods from one side, we want to speed up from one side sub products to our production line, and from the production line to the goods to the market. We should use, and probably it will be on the 99% in the few months, few years. It will be the use of the e-commerce tools for doing that, just for the connection through from the suppliers to the end user, to the customer. And basically, if you use this kind of tools, we can control the speed of the logistics, and we can control how the goods are delivering to the chain. It's not the robust, let's say, solution, but it's better than controlling on the phone and just operating on the regular orders. So from my point, to speed up this chain and how to develop this, I think go to the e-commerce, use e-commerce tools for that. They have it, and they are just there.
Thank you very much, and it's quite interesting, really. And another question I would like to take, it's where should be the starting point for existing industries? Because at the moment, we are facilitating SMEs, Industry 4.0 as well, but really the economic power still belongs to the existing industrial base, in terms of the large industries, with large population of workers, where should be the starting point really for this existing industry? And I would like Mr. Mohammed, please could you start with us, because you have had experience with SMEs already. So what could be the starting point for existing industries?
Yeah, I think, thank you very much for this question. I think, as we heard, the first point is to synthesize them. A lot of SMEs, they don't know the benefits of this revolution, and they are afraid maybe, or they think, and there are sometimes confusions. For example, they confuse the Industry 3.0 with Industry 4.0. So, for example, a lot of people, they think that when we are talking about smart manufacturing, we are talking directly about robots and replacing workers with robots or with the intelligent machines. This is not the issue of the Industry 4.0. This was made by the Industry 3.0, but now we are talking about the digitalization, and we have to explain them that this revolution is there to enhance the capabilities of the workers and not to replace them. We give them the assistance, we give them the possibility to we change also the mindset and also maybe also the business model of the company to take, for example, the idea that the workers, they are our collaborators and not workers, and this gives them the confidence that they can do it. And then, as we said, also the return of investment. A lot of companies, they have a lot of waste. They have a lot of they lose a lot of money because their process are not tracked in real time, or they have a lot of energy waste. And if you give them with just a small calculation, with a small tracking a solution of their material, maybe they will reduce the waste, and then the return of investment will be very quick if they introduce such solution. And from the other side, also to give them the assurance that this way was experienced in other countries and in other companies. That's why it's very important to give them real showcases, real experiences. Then they will be more convinced that they will take this way. And the rest of the work is also that the SMA has to take this project as its own project. It should not be done by an external company only. It should be an internal project of the company to make to reserve resources, human resources, to do it inside the company and not from outside, because everything that you introduce from outside will not be used within the time. So that's why the first step is to prepare all of this, and then with the roadmap, companies, they can go step by step in this direction.
Thank you very much. Very good. That's a very good point. And the roadmap needs to be very sound. They have to go gradual and map out a very strategic roadmap. And at the same time, I would like to have the perspective from the research and development view. Probably maybe Chanel, you could help us with this. Where should the existing industry start from? Chanel?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay, thanks. Sorry. So in my opinion, the truth is that we can only start where we are. You know, there's different companies running at different levels of automation. There's different companies who do not need to digitize certain operations. And it's often a misconception that everything needs to be digitized. And if it adds no financial value, there's no point in it. You know, the whole point of evolution of technologies was to facilitate well-being in some way. You know, I always use the analogy of you know, if you have a TV, in the old days, there was an analog tuner, or there was a TV where you had to change the channels. I know growing up, I was the TV remote. Nowadays, you can voice control, you know, the operation of certain devices. So the only reason for that transition or the evolution of the technology was to facilitate the well-being in some way. And when it comes to where do we start, it's gaining an understanding, and I believe Kevin referred to understanding the purpose of your company and understanding what value you are trying to add. So when it comes to digitization and where we should start, my whole opinion would be based on understanding what your value add is. What is that niche offering that you have? And then understanding how you can use digital technologies to enhance or supplement that offering. That's where we should be starting. And based on that, different companies will be starting different at different level. So that's my response.
Okay, thank you very much. Kevin, please could you respond to this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, so ultimately, I agree with Shanil there in terms of it's different for everyone. You know, where perhaps I don't agree totally is, I mean, there's much that you may not think is worth digitizing in your organization, but you actually don't know until you don't know it. And I'll take a perfect example between what I actually call about what I think about digitizing and then actually creating an exponential organization. And I'll use an example from the manufacturing company I worked for. So we used to within the organization, each department, if you needed to order PPEs or cleaning materials or things like this within the organization, it was a paper-based book, right? You had a triplicate book. I would write, I need gloves and hairnets and shoe covers, etc., etc. I need all these things, and it would then be a physical book. Someone would fill it in, bring it to me as the operations manager. I would sign it, and then a copy would go to the store and a copy would stay here, right? That's how things were. And then the team said, no, we're going to digitize this. And so what did they do? They just took this physical book and they turned it into a computer program. The process stayed identical. Someone, instead of writing, was now typing into a computer. The approval process was exactly the same. Now, what should have happened if we wanted to be think about the digitization in an exponential way would have been to say, let's take all that written data and get someone to capture it. Okay, now that's a lot of work, and let's capture this data, and then let's use an AI algorithm to determine when we need to get new stock. And then we will monitor that AI algorithm that is going to then make it perfect. It's going to start to learn that in certain periods when we're making winter products, we need different things towards summer, etc. You know, these sorts of things. And that would have been an exponential transformation, where suddenly we've taken a process that used to take a human out of their job of cleaning, or out of their job of monitoring the line, to actually now go and write in a book to say, I need all this equipment or all this PPEs, etc., etc. And so it really is a mindset shift. I think many people have mentioned mindset shift here, and that's where it starts for me. So it starts by actually within the organization saying, what is the potential of the future, and how do we need to shift our thinking? Because you are going to, even in small businesses, going to still have some immune response. People saying, why are we doing this? Are you trying to get rid of us? Are you trying to change things to, you know, just to make more money? Look, what's the purpose, right? And so it's a complex question, because it is different for everyone. But I truly believe it starts with mindset. I also would like to say that I'm not the biggest fan of the term fourth industrial revolution, because what we're experiencing now is not like anything else before. You know, it's the digitization of the world, the explosion of technologies really completely changes things. And so that might be controversial, but I think it's more like a first digital something. But anyway, I digress. Thanks, Kenneth.
Oh, thank you very much. That is quite interesting. So I will invite Professor Ondubisi again. Please where should the existing industry base start from? Your mic is muted.
Yes, yeah. So I think the existing industrial systems, they should actually start within the domain of knowledge creation. I do believe vividly that without the capacity to create knowledge, assimilate, adapt, and implement and use that knowledge, there is really nothing you can do. You know, there is this kind of notion that if you work really very, very hard, as we do in Africa, all of a sudden, we are going to essentially calibrate out some of the challenges that we have. The best thing about America today is because they have good universities like MIT, Johns Hopkins, Princeton. If you go to Europe, the same thing. If you go to South Africa, the same thing. They have great universities. So in Sub-Saharan Africa, we need to see how industry-university partnership can actually advance to the next level. Unless we can create knowledge, we will struggle to actually build those innovation systems that are going to be very critical for us to actually make progress in these things that we are talking about. You know, go back to human history, even the time of Moses. The Bible said that when he appeared before the Israelites, that they marveled because he had studied under the pharaohs. In other words, Egypt had had the best and the finest educational system in the world. And that gave Egypt the opportunity to rise. America has a very good educational system in the world. That is why it's one of the finest nations in the world. So Africa needs to invest in the mines of knowledge, not in the mines of hydrocarbon, not in the mines of minerals, but in the mines of knowledge. If we can do that, I believe other things will take care of themselves. Because when you can create knowledge, you have the capacity to renew yourself. You have the capacity to refresh yourself. You have the capacity to actually have an internal systems that can overcome other exogenous processes that can actually come after you. Nigeria does not have much resilience because we are using guesswork as a strategy in policy implementation. We don't know what works and what doesn't work because we don't even measure anything. The same thing happens in Ghana. Until we can build systems that can help us create knowledge, track what is happening, what is improving, what is not working, and begin to make changes, Africa will be run through guesswork. And when you are run on guesswork, you don't even know whether you're moving forward or moving backward. Thank you.
Yes, Professor, before you leave, I just pick a point you made. You said industrial university partnership. I think this should be the engine, the stimulant, because as of today, I don't know if the universities, if Industry 4.0 is actually resonates in the existing academia. What's...
Yeah, I think the major issue here has to do with reward for innovation and reward for being exceptional. Maybe excluding Egypt, maybe a part of Morocco, and then South Africa. The tenureship and progress in most university systems in Africa is based on seniority. If you come in, you need to spend 5 years in a position, they now promote you to the next level. Whether you have demonstrated scholarship or not is irrelevant. But if you come to places like United States, if you are a very brilliant person, I'm telling you, within a year, 2 years, you're moving through the ranks. And so if there is that incentive for people to use merit-based system instead of age tenureship-based system, we are going to see these professors beginning to go out to the industry to now relate and begin to do things that actually have impact in their communities. Let me give you an example. If you go to Ahmadu Bello University's area, just using an example in Nigeria, you have one of the largest agricultural departments in Africa. But walk out of the university gate, you see people that are begging for food. So I have asked the dean, how do you have this big agricultural program and everybody living around you is hungry? There is this kind of disconnection that you are investing so much in accumulation of knowledge, but the individuals and the communities are not feeling the impact. But go to Tuskegee University in the United States. Those days we were there as students, you know that you are a Tuskegee student because the farms will give you potato free, the farms have goats, because you can actually see a school that is involved in agriculture having an abundance in the capacity to produce food and feed America. So incentive is very critical for us to have the professors that can go the extra mile to engage with the industry. Today, there is no repercussion if you don't do that. In short, they don't have any benefits because they believe whether I do work or not, after 5 years, I'm qualified to move to the next round. Africa needs to fix that if we want to be very competitive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. And I move now back to Poland. Marek, please, the industrial base, how do we facilitate changes? And could we compare this to the experiences from Poland? Marek, please.
Yes, yes, of course. I mean, we basically all share in larger or lesser extent the issues of the introduction of the new industrial revolution. I already mentioned it. It has been mentioned already before. You know, I think the biggest problem is always the fear of generating unemployment and losing jobs, and the robots will replace us. Well, telling the truth, I'm not so afraid. Especially, we need to remember one thing, that as was rightly said at the very beginning, a lot of manufacturing power has been transferred from the US and Europe to China. Now, if we want to regain the control over manufacturing within our premises, so that means in Europe or in the US, that means that we will of course have to create more jobs, because whatever is being manufactured in China will need to be manufactured in Europe, in the US, right? But of course, because of the cost of the labor in the US and in Europe, and on one side, and on the other, the desire to keep the consumer products on the lowest possible level, which is allowed thanks to those goods being manufactured in China. Well, we need to find a solution, and most likely such a solution will be to equip robots. I mean, the production plants with robots or higher, let's say, automation of the products. That's one side, but that's the largest stretch, I would say. Now, in many cases, that's what we have experience with, like I said already, in Poland and in Europe, is changing the job structure from and offering new places and new education, new skills to people that used to work in heavy industry. So we need to retrain these people that they were about to work in the coal mines for another 50 or something years. Now they have maybe 10 ahead of them. So we need to make a huge work in restructuring a large part of the economy. That's one. So education, as Mr. Professor said a few minutes ago, education is absolutely the key factor. Training in the new jobs, because let me tell you, introducing the robots themselves doesn't really completely change let's say, doesn't create immediately unemployment. It just changes the things that people will be doing. So instead of doing the difficult and hard tasks that are very often are dangerous for health and for life, you know, especially in the longer term. You know, people will be needed to do different type of work, which will be much more, let's say, will be much more secured. Those tasks will be easier to do. So we will not be working hard, but the entire idea is to work smart. And that's you know, and we in Poland, we are going through this process, and it's many times not very easy, but I think that the key thing is to start educating people that this industrial revolution, like Kevin was saying before, you know, the Gutenberg invention has completely changed the mindset of people and the entire the world, right? It was the rules of the world. Now this industrial revolution also is changing, but the most important thing is we need to educate the people right from the beginning, to show them the entire picture, not to try to not to scare them off that, oh, you know, that the robots will take your jobs. You know, we went through this same thing like with the steam machine in 19th century. You know, there were many people saying, oh no, you know, the steam machines will destroy completely our economy. Well, the trains will completely destroy. The airplanes will completely destroy the ground transportation. Well, it turned out not to be true. The other way, you know, it has created additional jobs, not only in those industries themselves, but all the other industries around. So I think that the most important thing is to also learn from European countries, and not to introduce the education in the right way, not to scare people off that robots are bad because they're going to take their places, but to put people to say, listen, you will be doing other things than working hard in a difficult conditions for your life and health.
Thank you very much. That was quite direct to the point. The contribution is quite accepted. And I just have one or two questions more, just to clarify. Does Africa have same mindset? And Mohammed and NWC, I'm going to be asking you about this, because we have the North Africa, the South Africa, the East Africa, different part of the different coordinates in Africa. They are not moving at the same rate, because I'm really fascinated about what Mohammed has presented, and I'm not sure I can get the same in probably in West or in East Africa. You understand what I'm trying to say? So they have kind of showcased it's a pace setter. The center is a pace setter. It's a kind of an S-tray for industry in terms of Industry 4.0, where we can point out the issues to them and stuff like that. And probably Mr. Mohammed or Professor Ndubuisi, you would like to take this point. How do we stimulate this mindset, especially among the regulators? That is the policy providers, you know, in terms of policy, regulations, and culture as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. So I think Tunisia is an example for African countries. We are not Europe, but we know that Africa is a big continent, and there are a lot of differences. This is right, but the experience can be the same. So I think one important thing is that we have to look to the potential of African resources, and not only material resources, but almost human resources. We have a lot of African people that are in our diaspora in a lot of countries, and they can be the first bridge to make this transition. If we accelerate the connection between African people that are in the other countries, in Europe or in USA, and people that have made an experience in this way, they can have these both sides. They know the context of the new technologies existent in the Europe, for example, and they know also the context of their countries, and then they can be the bridge to translate this into the local context. Otherwise, you will not have if you invite experts from Europe or from USA, maybe they can talk a lot about the strategy, a lot about the techniques, but they are not familiar with the context, with laws, with the mindset, how people see the technology and so on. So I think the role of the diaspora is very important to make this bridge. The second thing is also to work together. It's not. This is not something that you can do it alone. You have to make connection. First of all, with the political side. I think a lot of countries now are talking about this. As when I see the example of Indonesia, for example, their president he has made as a strategy for the country that they will be Industry 4.0 nation for 2030. So if you have this commitment from the government, of course, in our country, you are very related to the political side. You're not as a the political situation is usually like this. And then if you have this and you have of course the money, so you have to establish the first experiences as competence centers, as multipliers for the Industry 4.0, and connect you to the universities, to the research centers, and to the clusters of industry. A lot of industries, they make their own clusters. They are together. For example, if you go to textiles companies, they have their own chambers. If you go to the other sectors, you will find other chambers and other communities. So you have to connect with them and to have in each of these circles one ambassador for the Industry 4.0. If you have one ambassador, so it will be a network. It's a network work. It's not made from one instance. It's then you will see the acceleration. I think this strategy is made here in Tunisia. We have this strategy to work together, to work in a network, to have in each instance an ambassador for this Industry 4.0 in the university, in also in the political side, and also in the SMEs, and then you will get it. This is my experience here.
Thank you very much. And Professor, please.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I just like Mohammed noted, that is what it takes. If you look through after the Great Recession in 2007, 2008, 2009, there was a massive level of translation in the innovation system within the sub-Saharan Africa, especially. A lot of guys that lost their jobs in the United States and Western Europe, they were forced back into the continent. And when they came back to the continent, they now paired with their own brethren, and they brought so many great new things in Africa. In short, if you look at the acceleration of technological growth, application of new technologies in industry, and even changes in some cases in the university system, you saw that the Great Recession was actually a net positive for Africa because a lot of people moved from Europe to the continent. But after that, of course, opportunities are here in Northern America and Western Europe. We are not, of course, hoping that there will be massive recession where people will lose their jobs to the extent they have to go back to the home country. But what has to happen, just like Mohammed noted, is that there needs to be an effort from government to figure out that there is something so valuable for Africa within these countries. The best export Africa makes today is the human capital. That is our best export. Unfortunately, that trajectory is not going to change any moment from now. You know, Yesterday, I posted something on my LinkedIn feed. My colleague, my senior in the university in Nigeria, Kingsley Fregene, was recognized by Lockheed Martin as one of the top control engineers in America. He's the 23rd person ever to receive that national award from the United States. So there are so many of them in NASA. There's so many of them in Microsoft. There are so many of them in Oracle. So Africa exports its best, and that continues to be a challenge. The question here, what do you do? How can you stop it? Because if the conditions at home are not favorable for these brilliant people, there is no way you can stop them from looking for greener pastures and opportunities. So it's a very big, difficult thing. And it's not something that you will think patriotism will solve, because myself, I also left Nigeria when I finished university education for America, because I also wanted to have an opportunity of participating at the very best. So but Rwanda has a playbook. What Rwanda is doing today is to reverse what usually takes us out of the continent by bringing it back into the continent. That is why Carnegie Mellon University has a campus in Rwanda. And they are bringing in new systems, innovation systems, so that people can actually move from the United States and go and work in Rwanda. We need to have a massive scaling of that playbook across the continent so that we can have a critical mass that will come back and help to develop the continent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Alexander, please. This should be the last kind of closing comments. Alexander, please, from the investment, from trade perspectives.
Yeah. It's basically if we talk about just investment and we should about thinking. It's back to my previous speak. It's just we should just, let's say, invest wisely and prepare the thing. This is basic thing. So we should measure correctly the profit from and the potential profit from our investment, and if solution is properly adjusted and it's everything correct, we will show the profit from such a business. And this is, I think, this is only one, let's say, goal we should keep in mind. So if we talk about the investment and who should be the investor and how to profit them and collect the money and so on, yeah, it's open issue. In Poland, we have, let's say, venture capitalists who invest, and the banks and all others type of investment, even the European invest. So maybe it's from this kind is a little easier for us, but the heart and the center of the problem is always the return of the investment and the profit, and this is nothing changed from that. So it's very simple. I think it's not easy to implement, but it's simple. The rules are simple.
Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate all the contributions from the speakers. They have demonstrated knowledge, they have demonstrated expertise, and as well as experience. And at the same time, I would like to use this opportunity to introduce to you the Ampliphase Africa concept. And all what we have discussed today is kind of an intro into the Ampliphase Africa. And what we want to do, most of the questions I've asked today is also in this direction, whereby we want to have a unified mindset in Africa, a unified mindset, and OpenExo is going to be playing part in